We have a new loading screen. Now, some would call it a loading screen. It's more of a loading wall.
Yeah. So, here we go.
There it is. That's the loading screen.
Hang on, is that playing? It is, yes. Sorry, I had to check. That's a bit facetious. I can see the light glowing around the sides, but
I think there's several reasons why this fails. And one of them I haven't heard talked about as much, so it's the one I'll do first. And it's something that will...
Oh, was it the very first thing I noticed? Which is this?
Yep.
Yeah, it's...
And I have a feeling that both me and you will notice that because...
Because we're effectively UX and UI designers.
Thumbnails.
Yeah.
So, right. Your eye is drawn to detail and it's drawn to contrast. And that means, if you see a UI where there's loads of colors, they're all really bold, and there's loads of just lines intersecting, and your eyes just go, oh my god, dude, I can't latch onto anything. And that's why the best YouTube thumbnails are really clean and simple. Because they guide your eye through whatever they're trying to say naturally, and it doesn't sort of confuse you up. So there's like pretty basic design principles that they've really missed the mark on here. And it just is, you have these UI areas of email or phone number, that's funny, password, and just all of that UI. Underneath that UI, what do we have? We have points of brightness. We actually have...
behind, not underneath. Behind, which is the problem here.
Yeah, so the points of maximum contrast, which is what your eye is going to be pulled to. And I know some people may be like, you guys are just talking about nerd shit. Doesn't matter. It's cool. Here's the thing. Back in the day, I don't really know how they're done now, but the way that cameras would do their autofocus was contrast-based. The things that would be in focus would have very defined contrast because they're perfectly in focus, so you can see the contrast. That's how they calculate what is or is not in focus. So that basically means if you just have lots of intersecting lines, lots of points of near maximum contrast, like the contrast ratios between your UI elements and their backdrop, this is just a total mess.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it in as many words. I would say it as, why is all the shit in the middle here? Why is all the stuff? And obviously you go contrast and the brightness is what it is, because there's a lot of detail over here, but it's very dark. And it's not where your eye is drawn to. Your eye is drawn to this, which is where all this stuff is, which is a pain in the ass. But you look at the other ones, right? So I've got this. You look at some of the others, and I'll look at the earlier ones. Look at this. There's a bit of stuff going on in here, but your login screen was framed by the big lads.
And contrast. Think about contrast. Where is the highest contrast here? It's kind of between the bright world to explore and the big dark portal.
Yeah, it is actually, the framing is the contrast. Because it's between these two.
It's well put together.
And there's not that much detail here that's behind everything else. You're looking at this in the foreground. And that's the same you see every time. The dark portal just worked for that, right? It was right here. They it was a little bit worse here because the login script, the loading details were covering this wall a bit. But you had... ICC up here, and you had Syndragosa over here.
It's not just the login Dragon did people's head in. Yeah. It's cool as fuck. As was this.
And this one, again, it has... there's a spot in the middle where the framing of the box around was the Stormwind, what do you call those things? The top of a tower.
Those towers.
Yeah, what do you call the top of a tower?
Flipping, I don't know.
Yeah, I forget, but it's there's the square shape here with him over the top, right? Same with that. There's a little spot in the middle for it, so you're framed by this.
The dark portal is made by the big boys.
Yeah. Now this is a bit worse, I think. I like this login screen. It's beautiful art, but the shape of that and the darkness did interrupt the contrast. I didn't like this one at all.
No, I didn't like
because
Legion.
What even is this? Who knows? But it was still...
It's just a random Legion portal.
But it still adhered to the principle of having your stuff in the middle. And here was the same, where I also didn't like this one, but it had these out to the side. Same here. Sort of same here, contrast up here and here.
I thought the Dragonfly one was a little weak.
Yeah, and this is this is literally the antithesis of on design principles of how they've done all of their login screens before, and I'm amazed that no one caught that when they were doing it.
Yep, this is the the way sometimes having an example of what to do is good.
Yeah,
but sometimes having an example of what not to do is even better. This honestly, on its own like that, fine. Once the UI is there, this feels like an example of what not to do.
Exactly. Now, there's a couple of different elements that could change this isn't actually on the beta yet. It could be different. This could be a very quick thing that then opens up, obviously, because people are thinking of people are thinking of like Hearthstone and the opening box. There could be something like that. This could break. This could like crumble in and give way to something which causes more of a like a lack of contrast right in the middle, more of a solid brightness, and that would be really cool. But it's generally like this is as it stands. You're like, man, this is very, very quiet. This is quite weak, and I'm really surprised at the lack of the fact that because I'm assuming this is something that you would have multiple people sign off on because it's the first thing you see when you open the game. But clearly, unless they have plans, it kind of slipped through. Now, I will say that, yeah, I know a break from tradition isn't necessarily bad, but it's also kind of
It's
bad.
not the break from tradition that's
It's kind of bad.
The break from tradition isn't the problem. It is that it fails very, very foundational UI design principles. And this is a piece of UI.
All of these, like not all of these were traditional, but they were traditional because they worked. And they all followed the same principle. It's not even there.
Yeah. Basically, the point is, if you have a form that your users are going to be filling in, if you have like text fields and stuff, you want that to be really clear and not be muddled. This just looks like massive visual mess. Okay. Now, if you wanted to do this perhaps in a better way, have that circle thing be shattered and a sort of void scape in the middle.
Yeah.
So that you have, quite a contrast. And instead of, as in the vanilla logo, you're going from the dark spooky place, you're going through the portal into the the land of wonder with its epic mountains.
It's never made any sense.
This could be an inversion of that that is selling the threat in the expansion rather than just a hot wall, but worse, a hot wall that has just contrast that doesn't work basically. So it's like it fails in the vibes, but it also fails in the technicals.
Yeah, I also have something else to say because I see people bring about it in chat, and you're correct to say that people only see it for like a second or two, and it goes right to the warband screen. The warband screen does put effort in. All
doesn't
of those
make
things.
it better though.
Well, for a start, it doesn't make it better, but also I think that, and this is something that that's very logical. That's a very logical, correct thing to come to.
The way you do the small things is how you do everything. If you allow something to be subpar with the excuse that it isn't massive, that's understandable prioritization, but you need to still internally understand that it's bad, and you've let the bad thing ship pragmatically, not because it was good and ideally acceptable.
And that's not even my entire point. That's also true. But my entire problem is that this is the first thing you see. What's the first thing you see in any other game outside of you don't count logos, right? Because everyone sees I've been flashbanged by the Bandai Namco, and there's the FromSoft, and then you see Elden Ring and you see the key art and you see it's beautiful and you see it's everything, right? So it's the first impressions actually do matter. And people are like, because I remember I posted this on Twitter and people were like very dismissive about it. And also because I tend to post quite formally when I'm talking about World of Warcraft stuff on Twitter, because if I post informally, people get mad at me for being dismissive. They were dismissive enough, like, it doesn't matter. But like, I think it matters way more than anyone lets on in really subtle ways that will really change the entire opinion, right? It's like, it's the screen. It's the first thing you see. You will anchor to the first thing you see. One of the reasons the login thing was, especially in login queues, by the way, if you're staring at it for ages, this is iconic because it was really fucking cool. And you open the game and you get that and you get the music and you're like, oh my God, this is sick as hell. And the same with like Syndra. It's like, oh my God, is that a fucking undead frost dragon? Holy shit, I get to fight that. What's going on? That's cool as hell. Same with Deathwing. They kind of lost some of the cool factor over time, but like those are the things that are really, really obscenely strong. So like I think this actually matters way more than I think anyone could really immediately into it, but that's just because
it doesn't sell the War Within.
Yeah,
look at the Cataclysm cinematic or the Cataclysm loading screen or login screen. That tells you in an instant everything you need to know. You know what's at stake: Stormwind, the world being ruined. You know the villain is there. He is. Really effective storytelling. Tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, what's one of the most sets the tone for the expect half-assed? Yeah, a little bit. But now, what is one of the most iconic things about Capcom games?
I might be the wrong person to ask.
You've been playing one recently.
I mean, the thing with like Resi 4, it would be, at least for Resi 4 Remake, which is where I enter that, the level of polish everywhere.
No, I was actually fishing for a specific answer and you didn't get it.
Yep, I have no idea.
It's the menu screen, the start screen.
Very simple.
And when you press the button, Resident Evil or Devil May Cry, where it's the same thing. You hit the button, you hear the gunshot, and it's Devil May Cry. Everyone loves them for that specifically. They're always like really, really cool. So like, yeah, I think that's a thing where this stuff matters more than I think.
I know what we need.
Yeah.
Whenever you hit the login button, you just have the rumbling growl of Chris Metzen saying, "World of Warcraft, the war within, brother."
Yeah. 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 Like I get that the launcher sort of skips the login screen, but it also doesn't. It doesn't skip the login screen.
That's
That's my
naturally
point.
because you see it.
Yeah, it
but
doesn't.
we do take the point that it is different to the past where, like absolute buffoons, we had to enter those manually.
Good times.
Back in a world where streamers would just accidentally show their email address to the whole world.
Okay, so what else would you want instead of this? This is where the hateful answer has to come in. Something better. Something fucking better.
Ashkahat representing the most, the deep, dark, spooky place.
Or the sword. People are saying the sword.
The sword to match the cinematic show. The sword, of course, shows great threat. It also shows a level of high fantasy that they're trying to achieve. You could go for Hallowfall, which gives you a mixture of wonder and fear.
And then you could animate Beladar shifting.
Yep.
Which would technically be a spoiler, but that doesn't matter because everyone knows.
I mean, it's like you could look at, say, like a Storm Forged Eternal in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, where in a way, they're like, oh, maybe are they the good guys? I don't know, but like they're the good guys in a way where they look scary. I loved how Diablo portrays angels, right? Where some of the angels look as spooky as the demons. And how they animate, especially like as much as there's narrative criticisms of Diablo 3, I think a lot of the work that they did establishing what an angel looks like, how it moves, was really strong. And then that was carried into their work on Inarius, like masterfully. There's the big cinematic towards the end is fucking stunning. So I think Hallowfall's Arathi sort of Empire people, they really hit that.
They really did, yeah. You go, these guys are good guys. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Astros.
To tell you that. So the thing is, right? What info does that give me? How does it prime me for the experience? So in the case of, in the case of Vanilla and TBC, it was big fantasy adventure. In the case of Icecrown Citadel, you're like, this is the most desolate, grim place in the far north. This is the spooky place for us. This is serious shit. It instantly tells you so many things, and it's got a direct through line from the cinematic. The only through line that this has from this expansion cinematic is the effect that is applied on the Azeroth globe as the World of Warcraft words animate in. You keep on going through them, right? Mists of Pandaria, you look at the Veil, and you're like, okay, what do I learn from this? It's beautiful. It's rather ancient. They look like they're sort of protecting it. Are they ancient guardians? What were these statues erected in honor of? Of course, it's from Big Mogu, so we can think about that.
And then they're actually in the middle of the zone, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense, but anyway.
And, that just keeps on applying. Warlords of Draenor, it gets to work because it's a throwback, so that's kind of fair. Legion's pretty mid. I would at least say in terms of narrative, BFA is actually better than the Legion one. Not as an expansion, but certainly...
it's not a portal, it sucks.
Yeah. So
literally, my whole thought is not a portal, it sucks.
What does it tell you?
This isn't a portal, it sucks. I like it, but it sucks.
What does it tell you? What does it tell you about the story, about the fantasy, about the adventure? And again, I say, the way you do the small things is how you do everything.
Shadowlands 1 says it's time to touch tips.
Well, there we go.
And then Dragonflight says...
Even that.
Rocks.
Yeah, but I look at that and I think, wow.
Big place, cool.
Ancient grandeur, high fantasy. And certainly Dragonflight was going for high fantasy.
Yeah. And also it sets a whole tone of the expansion.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that and I think, look at those grand aqueducts. Those could not be built by our people. And indeed, they were not. They were built by Titan Forged. It makes sense. There's narrative, emotional context in those, as opposed to just a glowing wall.
Glowing wall.
Glowing wall.
But Michael, it represents the war within.
Yeah, but you could.
Azeroth.
Yeah, but you could represent it way better, couldn't you?
Okay.
I mean, maybe they
Anduin
say
punch
like
himself.
this is the core way about to be busted in. But anyway,
Yeah, the core way is not a circle.
we've spent enough time.
Also, the core way doesn't even do what I thought it did.
I see.
No, the core way is supposed to go to the heart.
Yeah.
It goes to the ring and deeps.
Aye, but sure, you know.
What?
Look, it's important. It's important. That being said,
Yes.
I will say this is of interest to me because a lot of what I've been doing outside of video work has involved UI and UX design stuff. So it's, I don't know, it's hit a timely topic for me. But also I acknowledge this is probably not what you're here for. So there are other very interesting stories.
No, this is important because this is the soul of World of Warcraft.
We will die upon this hill.
The soul is either there or not, and this means it's not, okay? Just like the soul and care and love and attention is in fact with the Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail screen. Do you know why? Because it's bright for the first time since Realm Reborn. And you know what they don't do? They don't fucking flashbang you. What they have decided to do is they actually have the contrast really, really low when it opens.
I've just brought a video up. I can see that.
So your screen is grey instead of white, so you don't get your eyes blasted into the back of your skull. What?
Why is it a Star Destroyer? You can see the flipping bridge. It's a Star Destroyer.
Yeah. Shh. Don't tell me.
Damn, Yoshi P's been watching too many of them films.
Matt, calm down. How dare you? I am extremely calm. My heart rate is nowhere near 90.